So Doctor Strange is out, and it's rather predictable in the sense that it's basically what everyone feared. This was the movie I was looking forward to. Doctor Strange was my favorite of all of the Marvel superheroes that they've shown, and it's the only movie I was looking forward to out of this entire phase. I really wanted this to be good, and it was, at first. But then for the last 90 minutes, I have no idea what happened. I don't know who on earth wrote this thing or what they thought they were doing. In fact, no, that's a lie. I know exactly what they thought they were doing, and it ended up in a horrific disaster. If you want a movie laden with a gender and identity, this is the one for you. It's all over the place, and it leads to what is actually a complete immoral destruction of basically every character in it, and it leads to almost all of them being insufferable. Which is a problem when they make up so much of the movie. When people were saying that, oh, it looks like there's going to be a lot of cameos and they're going to force Doctor Strange out of his own movie, they really weren't kidding. And you can basically work out how much use each character is going to be based simply on the fact that, are they a man or are they a woman? It really is that basic with this one. And the messaging starts off right from the very first scene, but it's not too bad there. I could have let it go. The first 30 minutes had some great action scenes that I really enjoyed. Yes, the plot is awful throughout the entire movie, and there's plot holes all over the place, largely put in because they're so obsessed with identity, they can't have the character act in any kind of reasonable or responsible way. They have to twist it. We can't have that person be bad because there are all these different checkboxes. So we're going to have to come up with some kind of excuse or reason that makes them that way. And that just adds plot holes in further else, and they just don't seem to care about it. But despite that, for the first 30 minutes, if it was all like that, I still could have enjoyed the movie because of the action scenes themselves, and it was still largely about Doctor Strange. But afterwards, for the next 90, oh boy. Now, this video is going to be larger spoiler-free. I am going to touch on some scenes, but only in their general structure. I'm not going to say who's in them, what the plot was, or anything else. So, I have to talk about the movie in some way, but it's going to be as spoiler-free as I can physically make it. It's just, I don't know whether some people might consider it very light spoilers. But first up is this weird America character, and I despise the name because every time they say America, I just think they mean the country, not the person. But she's got way more problems than that, because it's the current year, and that means a Type B can't actually have any kind of arc at all. But obviously in the press, they've all been going, oh, well, she was 14 when she made the movie, as if that's some god against criticism. No. I'm not going to play you a little identity games, even though you'd love to cram them into the movie as much as possible. I don't really care. So, here we go. Basically, should have been cut out of the movie, didn't contribute to the movie at all, and if you want to know the arc, well, here it is. Type B starts really strong, finds out halfway through the movie is actually stronger than they first thought, and by the end of the movie is told how amazing they are, and by being told how amazing they are, it makes them become even stronger, even though they were actually that strong all the way through. It's just now they realize how strong they really are. Yes, this is Captain Marvel all over again, and basically every single Type B that we've ever seen in anything for years now. No, you can't have struggle anymore. This is all about power. And that basically sums up all of the Type Bs throughout everything. We've even got the typical tropes. Hey, just when you thought you could actually get away with a TV series or a movie without women in STEM, no, just at the end, we're going to cram a woman in STEM in there, and it's like, why? This was actually someone who specialized in something they couldn't physically know because there was no way in the universe they could actually get any of the data on it, but apparently she already did. And the moral compass of the characters in this piece is so ski-whiff, I don't know which way's up, down, left, or anything else, because, whoa. The villains are, well, it can't be their fault. It can't be their fault. No, it must be the fault of something else, because why would someone need to take responsibility for their own actions? Oh no, I'm not evil. I've just gained access to knowledge that I shouldn't have, and it overwhelmed my brain. And actually, if only I'd had that knowledge kept away from me, I wouldn't have actually caused the destruction of everything. Yeah, Disney, you are incredibly subtle. So you've got villains where it desperately tries to make out that it's not their fault, they're good really. Then you've got good people, well, I think they're trying to pitch them as good characters, when actually what they do just, to me, says they're completely evil. And the excuses they come up with for their actions are so astronomical, they come across as like mustache-twirling villains when they're actually supposed to be the good guys. And this isn't like they're going for this all morally grey kind of writing. No, they're meant to be good guys. It's just that the writers, I don't think, have any sense of morality at all. And then you have the standard humiliations. The men who are just absolutely cowards who will actually just give up at the first sign of trouble. These are people who are supposed to be superheroes and yet are willing to let billions of people die just because somebody threatened them a little bit. Oh man, you're so brave. Meanwhile, you have the fights where the men are literally handled instantly just so we can have a fight between the ladies. Yes, the amount of times in this movie where they can just be summed up with 2 words is astronomical. And those 2 words are girl power! And tropes are basically what this movie is good for. The good old CW show of I can't do anything, and someone just comes up to them and goes, no, you can do that. And they're suddenly like, yes, I actually can do that, and then they immediately do it. I'm like, I don't even know how that got into script writing. It's in CW shows every single episode, and every single time I'm like, I can't believe you actually thought that was good writing. But now, to have it in a multi-million-dollar movie kind of blows my mind. I've understood about people failing upwards through lack of talent, but this takes it to a whole new level when you're actually taking tips from CW shows. And when I say the writing is bad, I mean, like, really bad. Major parts of the plot for the characters are literally given to the audience because they walk onto a paving slab. I wish I was joking. Now, I have to admit that adding this onto a paving slab does mean that that scene is very easily cut out if they want to, I don't know, remove it for certain foreign audiences or markets that they'd like to move into. I know there are stories that saying, no, they're not going to do that. There's no saying they won't in the future, though, once it's all died down and they've given it to everybody else. I mean, it certainly seems packaged that way, so it can very easily be removed and won't actually affect anything else in the entire story. So call me cynical if you want. All I'm saying is they've done it before. I don't see why they wouldn't do it again. And while there are some good action sequences in this, which I would have just enjoyed to be the entire movie, every single time in between them just got getting beaten over the head with the message that Hollywood wants to give you over and over again. Oh, look, we're going around the multiverse. And he's like, where did you get the food? And she goes, oh yeah, food. It's free all over the multiverse, nearly in every multiverse. It's actually really strange that you pay for food. I was like, oh, if only there was a certain belief system in Hollywood that all the rich people seem to follow, even though that exactly makes them hypocrites, which kind of means that you can't have private property and everything should be free. And apparently, across all the multiverse, they've all adopted that, despite the fact that their entire economies would crumble and everyone would starve to death because there's actually a cost involved in making food. Therefore, it must inevitably have a cost itself. I mean, she even gets it from a person, so presumably he would need some kind of recompense for that. But no, the rest of the universe, they've all solved that. I don't know how. Clearly they've all mastered the real system that's just never been tried before. And what you end up with is a movie where every single scene that Doctor Strange isn't in is awful. I never want to see anything with the Scarlet Witch in ever again. I've more than had my fill, and I watch WandaVision. This took all of the worst parts of WandaVision and thought, what if we spend millions of dollars on that? And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say every single character that wasn't Doctor Strange was completely insufferable. They were all awful. The ones that lasted more than a few seconds anyway. And I have to say, just having a character be strong and amazing and good at everything just because they have the power of fallopian tubes, that doesn't make a personality. And the fact that everyone suddenly likes them just because of it. Oh, you're so amazing. I've always loved you. Have you? Because you've only just pigging met her. But don't worry, put her in a strange situation where she's surrounded by things she can't possibly know about, and she just masters all of them because of the power of fallopian tubes. And the finale. Oh boy, the finale. I have to say, even though I was really looking forward to this movie, I wasn't once I saw the posters. The posters really let you in on what this movie was, and it wasn't a Doctor Strange movie. The thing was, even though I wasn't expecting much when I went in for this movie, I still, somehow, came away disappointed. And the finale is always going to be a large part of that. This finale, if you go and see it, when you go and see it, I don't see how anyone could like this finale at all. Not only does it make you end on a whisper, but you are just like, how on earth did any of that happen? It's the cheapest victory I've ever seen, followed by something that's even cheaper. It manages to take something that was critical to the entire movie and bigs up the entire way, and then it's just like, turns out it was that easy, was it? Oh, job done. And one of the things that annoys me is just how generically awful this show was. It's something we've seen in so many times before, repeated so often. This isn't a Doctor Strange movie for a significant part of the movie. And it just reminds me of things like Halo, where it's like, oh, we've got this character, Quan. Why? She's awful. She's one of the worst characters I've ever seen in anything, and she's just added into the movie, presumably because that's what the writers think is a good character, when she's objectively evil. And it feels like that in this. This feels like all those little side characters were added in were what the writers wanted to add. These were the messages they wanted to push, the people that they wanted to push into those roles. But the problem is, they've made them all repulsive, both in their ideas, their attitudes, their personalities, and everything about them. These are like the self-inserts of the Twitter warriors. You kind of get the feeling that in a perfect world, these are the people that would represent them. That's rather horrific. You kind of think, how on earth did a scriptwriter write this? And then you see the characters that they create off their own backs and put in, presumably to represent them or their desires and wants. And you're like, that's why you can't do anything. Now I understand your worldview and where you're coming from. It's not just that the characters are bad, it's that they operate within an entirely different moral framework, which I don't think even represents most people on the planet. It's all of these characters, almost without exception, seem to just be abominable in everything from their attitude to their actions and their morality. And any that they thought they didn't leave enough wiggle room to make an exception for if they really needed to, it's like, oh, don't worry, they were just under the influence anyway, it really wasn't their fault. This was just another 2-hour movie experience, and honestly, I'm glad it's only 2 hours, that started strong, and I could have had fun if it just carried on with what it was doing as a Doctor Strange movie, but yet turned into yet another disappointing movie. This is the reason why I don't really go and see movies anymore. I haven't, about 15 years at this point, because quite frankly, I went far too often and was disappointed far too often. I just thought, this is it. Hollywood has gone a long time ago. I didn't know why. I didn't know what they were doing there or their belief system back then. All I knew is I was bored and disappointed every time I went, and so I stopped. I focused far more on TV series, which were longer, had more time to explain the characters, build them up properly, and allow them to make better decisions in better situations. And that worked. Until recently, when Hollywood started to get budgets big enough to go to TV, and then they came over here, and they've ruined them as well through the various different streaming properties. But I have to say, if I have to point to a movie which really explains why Hollywood is failing, it's going to be this one. Doctor Strange will probably make a lot of money. Hey, I went and saw it, and I'm like peak normie. Doctor Strange is a cool character with a big name. I'm sure loads of people are going to see it. Doesn't mean that the movies are good, and it doesn't mean that it won't sour the taste for later movies. Just because one thing is a success in the way it made money doesn't mean that it doesn't harm the brand overall, which to me is a far greater idea of what success should be. A movie is a success if it builds your brand, if it's good enough to make people go and see things in the future. You can burn all your bridges in one and then just end it there and make a lot of money. But if no one wants to come back afterwards, you've still failed your audience, and that means you've failed as a long-term business. And that's how I think this movie is. There are so many problems and so many issues that I'm definitely going to make another video talking about spoilers and all the specific problems that I have with it. But it probably means I'm going to have to go and watch it again, and I'm not looking forward to that. But even without that, this isn't just like one issue you can point to and goes, that's the problem in the movie. No, there's so many of them. It's essentially like it looked at the last 5 years of what everything could possibly do wrong and thought, yeah, we're going to shove that in there as well. And then just starts beating you over the head with their own twisted beliefs. Oh, and what you're left with is a disgusting mess that really spoils the immersion of the thing. You know those movies where you go in, sit down, and then walk out and you're like, I'm amazed 2 hours have gone? That wasn't this. Even in the first half an hour, I'm like, okay, this is a bit slower, but I can put up with it. But by the end, I'm like, how is this movie still going and it's only 2 hours? And it's because I wasn't involved in the movie. They didn't pull me in. They didn't make me like the characters or want to know what was going to happen to them. They just wouldn't shut up about them moaning about it in the first place. And so I was constantly pulled out, constantly reminded that I was in a cinema watching a screen. And that is not what a movie should be about. So with all this thing, I went from being incredibly excited for Doctor Strange to not expecting much to being absolutely still disappointed. And quite frankly, that's about as much as I ever expect from Hollywood nowadays. These are people with too much money, too much time, and too little talent. Feels like the mask is completely off. You can tell this is a Disney movie, and in today's day and age, that's not a good thing. But let me know your thoughts down below. Have you seen it? Are you gonna see it? Let me know what you thought. And I'm gonna do a spoiler review after the Halo review, which is coming tomorrow, and then we'll be able to dig into the exact details of everything I despised about this movie, and I have a feeling I'm going to be going for a while with that one. So tune in for that, subscribe if you want to come and see it, and for more videos like this in the future, like the video if you liked it. But for now, that's it from me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.